about Romania, which was a country, as you just said, which was basically, let's say, the hardest version of communism, even in the 1980s. I just wonder, maybe this could be a good topic for future scholars and students of the whole issue to compare these two countries, like Romania and Hungary, which makes this very striking outcome that everything is absolutely different, and the mild option, the mild version of lustration, or the attitude towards lustration is the same. While Hungary was the softest version of communism, as opposed to the hardest version in Romania. The transition itself was the softest version, the most civilized, the most negotiated one in Hungary in 1888, 1889. Well, as opposed to Romania, where the bloody revolution happened, as you just said. So, and still, as far as we come to lustration, it's really a very, very similar approach by the political elite. And of course, it's beyond the scope of this conference. It's too bad there is nobody from Hungary and as an expert to talk about that, maybe about the real causes of that. But actually, I think it's a very interesting, topic for comparison. So now the floor is open to comments. So please come to the microphone.
Two questions to Oldřich Tuma and one comment regarding Zdzisław Krasnodębski's presentation. Well, my question refers to the new law in Czech Republic regarding the access to the secret police files. Relatively new law, as far as I know. It was passed in 2004, and to my knowledge, this law gives the unlimited access to these files. Basically, everyone can get the file of everyone else without any restrictions. And probably this is the most liberal, the most open regulation in all the countries of in all the post-communist countries. How does this system work in practice? Did it provoke a lot of public interest? And the second question is, I heard that the new institution in the Czech Republic is being created, which would deal with the communist past, a similar one to the Polish Institute of National Remembrance. Could you tell us something about this new undertaking? And my comment to Professor Krasnodębski's speech, basically I disagree with your many statements regarding the politics of history, but I will speak about it after lunch, so I will not elaborate too much. Right now, I only want to say that I can't agree with your statement that only now, for the first time, the commemoration of Katyn massacre was organized with the participation of the president. I would remind you that in the 90s, the war cemeteries were opened in Miednoje, Katyn, Kharków, those places where Polish officers were buried, and a lot of public coverage was given to these ceremonies. A Polish president took part in these ceremonies, not in a very dignified way, as we know, President Kwaśniewski, but this is a different story. It was covered by... Private TV covered his behavior, and public TV. There were always problems with public TV in Poland, and even then, public TV did not show President Kwaśniewski, who, let's say, behaved not in a perfect way. And another example, a monument was erected in Warsaw in the 90s devoted to those Poles who were deported to the east during the war and who were murdered by the Soviets, and every year public celebrations are organized at this monument with the participation of high-rank politicians. So I think that the reality is, again, more complicated.
Okay, so the first question, but in fact you answered it by yourself, so that's true. So there is, since I think 2005, there is a valid law about archives, and it really gives an completely unlimited access to all documents, not only of state security, but of Communist Party and other organizations of the old regime, without any restrictions, even without the protection of personal data. So otherwise in Czech archival law there is a quite wide protection of personal data, but it doesn't apply for this kind of documents. In fact, there was a certain development. I would say it was a gradual development, 97 or something like that. There was an act which made access to your own files, so you could see your own files, but then it changed, and now really anything's open. There was quite a hot discussion something like 2 years ago, and especially the focus was on the protection of personal data, especially in documents of victims of persecution of state security. But so there was even a petition signed by historians and former dissidents and so on. And as far as I know, some members of parliament made a question for Constitutional Court if this is, but until today the court didn't decide about it. So, but the use of this unlimited access is, as I say, rather. No, it's especially if you look on the Czech media, it's every 2 weeks another affair with a famous someone, but usually it's really focus is on actors, singers, sportsmen, some previous politicians, but it seems to me that the practice is they just the journalists, they just take the name and then they make a story about it, and it's, I would say, it's more business. So it's had titles with this and this was involved with state security and so on, but it's really not a serious approach about the communist period. Yeah. So one thing, and the other thing, yes, that there was a law passed, I think, this spring about the establishment since, January or February next year of the new institution. Originally, it had been called Institute of National Remembrance, but then after some discussions, they changed the name into the Institute for the Study of Totalitarian Regimes or something like that. So basically, I think it really works with the Polish example. So the one task of the institute will be to take over the documents of all not only state security but other repressive forces of the old regime, but so it will be an archive, a special archive, and the other thing will be that their task will be to organize research, publications, general, to inform, educate, and inform the society. So something like the Polish case, but still it's no, not at all. No, there is still this Office for Investigation and Documentation. It still exists. So it was deprived of its documentation part. So all, so the old Office for Investigation and Documentation of the Crimes of Communist Era, established 1993, was now it still exists, but the documentation part went over to this new institute. It still doesn't exist, but it's more or less the same people running now the archive of the Ministry of Interior. So something like 90 people who work for the Office of Investigation and Documentation were brought to the archive of the Ministry of Interior, and it's with intention that they will work within this new institution, and the old office, as a much small institution, will work on persecution, and yeah, but this new institute will be just archives and education and research and so on. So this is quite interesting. That next, I think, day after tomorrow, this Wednesday, the Senate will vote for the something like this, the collegium in Institute Pamięci Narodowej. So there will be a board. I don't know exactly the name of the board. So with seven persons. So the Senate will elect this board, and this board will play definitely very important part in just supervision over the institute, and my opinion also it will play a role in competition for director of the new institute and so on. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. No, but it was quite hot discussion in among Czech historians and archivists and so on. And I think the most important factor in the decision to create this new institution were elections, parliamentary elections, 2006, with majority, a slight one, but majority for Civic Democratic Party and other parties, and this effort was somehow connected with Civic Democratic Party, so that was the main reason.
May I answer to the comment?
Okay. Would you like to answer right now?
No, yeah. I'm allowed.
One by one.
I didn't. I think there was a sentence in my paper when I stressed that, of course, the reality is more complicated, and all these events I mentioned were commemorated before. So I agree with you, but I think also that there was a really qualitative change in recent years, and I think everybody who really observed this must have to acknowledge it. Yeah, just to mention that just this gesture by President Kaczynski to promote the officer killed in Katyn. It's a very simple but very moving gesture, and that all the names of the victim were read in the publicly and so on. For me it's astonishing, I must say, that no Polish historian, wrote a book about it. The film about Katyn is made just one. So this is the questions why Wajda made this film, as his father was. Yeah, but not. What is the monography? There were many. There's many work was done, but really this is the same like with the Warsaw Rising. Of course, there was a monument and so on, but the museum was opened up 2004. And really, I am myself really astonished how big is the change, how deep is the change. The idea to give the order to the people from Solidarność who are neglected, like Gwiazda or Walentynovich. Besides, we can quarrel about their role. But it's a general. You cannot say it didn't change anything. No, it as really a change as deeply. And the question which is now as open up. This is the question if the Republic of Love will pursue this. Carry on this politics in the future. It would be a small and subtle changes of priorities, because this is the question: how do you do? So what do you do with it, with this story? One of the book about Warsaw Rising, written by Polish author, it's a book by Borodzi. It was published in German, but with what a strange conclusion in the end, I must say, and because he described this. So probably what is the more acceptable from German side is a very irrational and so on. On the end is a political conclusion. It is used as a legitimation for the round table negotiation. You have to avoid this tragedy and so on and so on. So it's very. So there's no disagreement, I think, between us. There was not my intention to say that it was nothing done, and I appreciate the work of the people and all these monuments. But still, I will insist on it that what happened as 2 or 3 years or 4 years ago, it's a significant change in this attitude. To the national past, and so we move this. For instance, that Warsaw Rising was commemorated last year, first time, not only in Warsaw. So it's a very or that we have that now there's the idea to build up Museum of National History. And I was a couple of months ago in Battery Foundation, and we had always to defend this, defend this idea, because there are still among us the people who say, okay, what is the politics of history? It is not in competence of state, And you look around, I am living in Germany, you look around, you know what is Preußische Kulturbesitz, you know how many the state, through foundation and so, invest in the history and the politics of history. Not, probably not in negative attitude, but just to preserve as a memory. So it's, so once again, I would say, you cannot deny that something has changed, and we will see what will happen in future.
My question is, in what extent it is typical for the circle of Czechoslovak dissidents, this approach? Is it typical or not? And the second question is addressing to our German speakers, let's say. 2 years ago, probably, I'm not sure, KlausBattlin book, The Long Shade of the Third Reich, how the Germans change their national character, was published in Polish. And the main thesis of this book is that the contemporary politics of history in Germany is based on a civic paradigm, on the notion like democracy, human rights, pluralism, and so on. And my question is there any alternative for this approach in Germany? I mean, politics of history and dealing with past. Thank you.
Short answer, yes. I would say this is quite typical for the mainstream of the dissent of Charter 77. Of course, they were of course different. They were different groups and different opinions. So especially the younger people and much more radical opponents of the communist regime, who were more and more important in late 80s, wouldn't agree with this. But more or less what Havel several times said about the lustration law, I would say would be typical, especially for those who were formerly communists and were expelled from the party after 68, which was not the case of Havel. Havel never was a member of the Communist Party. But yes, I would say this is more or less typical. But of course, there are a variety of different opinions.
Thank you very much. Professor Wesch, would you like to comment?
I think
or
I'll
maybe
probably ask you to answer first, because I really don't know the book, but I just heard that it probably was only published in Polish. So, I mean, I have not heard of it, and the other German sitting here said it probably was only published in Polish. So I'm sorry that I have to pass up.
No, you see, I say something about KlausBattlin, because I was in many discussions with him, also in the Battery Foundation, and he left Germany 20 years ago, 15 years ago. He lives permanently. In Poland, and I think most of immigrants, as his picture of Germany is this picture of Germany, vision of Germany. Yeah, I think obsolete in a way, because he. And on the other hand, he is influential in Poland. He's not very known in Germany. This is why you don't know his name, because he's and sometimes in a discussion I saw that many Polish intellectuals are really helpless, because they have no really knowledge to discuss with him. Yeah, so he. Once I was at the discussion and he talking about German attitude to the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, according to me, as a totally wrong. Yeah, but So I generally say it's so true. You can, I make the comparison. This is like, to hear about illustration from Professor Elster. You learn something, but you also learn it's one-sided, yeah? And look, I have here two very important publications recently. So one is from Eckhard Fuhr, Was wir uns finden, die Berliner Republik als Vaterland. Yeah? Berliner Republic as Fatherland. Yeah? It is about new German patriotism. It's not combined with, it's a civic, when it is nationalist, it's a civic nationalism. They combine this with European attitude and so on. But this, from Polish-German relations, a little complicated, but it is. The other is a special edition, Neues Deutschland zur Physiognomie der Berliner Republik. And here you have such an article, Die selbstbewusste Mittelmacht, self-conscious middle power, by Herfried Münkler, who is a leading German political scientist. Or you have an article about new patriotism, about patrimonium, and so on. So this doesn't make the opinion by Bachmann totally wrong, because of course it's not back to the 30s, but it is not, but it's not Verfassungspatriotismus von Habermas, because it's gone, yeah, it's gone, yeah, everything. And in Poland, the people rediscovered the concept of Verfassungspatriotismus. It's like with postmodernism, at the time which is already past, yeah. So this is often so, and this is why our discussion also about German-Polish. We are very divided in Poland about this topic because many people just cannot accept the fact that something changed. You can see this. You please go to Bonn, walk through Bonn, and then go to Berlin and walk through Berlin and the center of Berlin, and then you notice the difference.
Can I say something anyway? Also, I don't know the book. Particularly now that I have a little bit more background, I think it has to do with generations. If he left Germany 20 years ago, then, he has a vision of Germany of 20 years ago. I also think, and of course, I'm not a 68 person. I'm just a little bit too young, but I was heavily influenced by it, and I got my degree in Germany and so on. But I also think that this development after 1990 toward a more, self-assured middle power, I think is a healthy one. You cannot live forever being a central power in Europe and not be involved. So in that sense, I think to me, and you may say, this is my, my German perspective, but to me it was overdue to move toward, a more active foreign policy and to create some sense of patriotism for particularly the younger generations, because, they cannot live forever with this. They live with the legacy, but I think, to me, it doesn't, one doesn't exclude the other. You can be aware of your past, it can be part of your national consciousness, and you can still be proud to be German, which 20 or 30 years ago was impossible. So I think that in that sense, I very much agree with you. There's a change. I may see this change maybe more positive than some others, because I have not seen it as a new nasty nationalism, other than a few skinheads, but they exist, unfortunately, but they are not the mainstream.
Thank you very much. We have one more question.
Picking up on the German-Polish issue, and I'm maybe still caught in the Cold War, and hopefully it's totally innocuous, my observation. But when you walk from the railroad station in the 80s to the center of the city of Düsseldorf, there was a Deutsches Osthaus. I can understand a museum like that in Düsseldorf, but I can't quite get comfortable with the idea there's a Schlesisches Museum in Görlitz, in Rump, Schlesien, so to say, and a Pommernische Museum in Greifswald, in Rump, Pomerania. It seems to be at least symbolically, sort of a step in the wrong direction. As innocent as it might be, and under the circumstances of Europe now, hardly anything to be concerned about, but it's just a symbolic, a symbol there that needed an observation.
Again, this is really my personal opinion. If it were accompanied by new claims on old territory, on nationalism, then I would be very much bothered by it. But as a commemoration of Germany's history, I mean, it was part of Germany at some point, and you cannot ignore that past. I mean, history, we need to look at all aspects of history, and we cannot just exclude certain parts of it because they're politically not correct or advantageous. I mean, I think it's about how you do it. I think it's at least as important. And I think, that's again part of, however you want to call it, about the normalization to history or broadening of history in Germany, that everybody, of course, in Germany was, maybe not everybody, but people were aware that certain parts of the history were not discussed. Initially it was the Nazi past, and then later there were other parts because it was not politically correct. And I think now we are coming toward, a more balanced view, hopefully. And as I said, it's not so much that there is a museum, but I would have to see whether what they present bothers me. It's the content of the museum and how they present it. If they present it as part of history that is past, is done, then I don't have any problems. If they, pursue it as an agenda of people who were expelled, then I would be very much bothered by it. So.
But it is a mistake in a German province where 15% of the voters vote NPD.
Yeah, but I think that has other reasons.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that I see this small dialectic. So that means that on one hand, I agree with you that there are some inevitable tendencies which are, when I talk with my students, it would be irrational to say now you are guilty or you. So this is a kind of new patriotism. They are very proud on the achievement, democratic achievement, and so. What a elite concerns me. There is a very uncritical attitude now. That 2 weeks ago I had a discussion with my students about concept of liberal democracy, and we talk about John Rawls, and I asked them, is Federal Republic just country? And they say yes. Yeah. So it's a very, this is a great achievement. When I asked this question to my Polish students, they would say, okay, no, Third Republic, and so they identify very, very strong. This is as one, and they became sometimes they are very uncritical. So they identify, for instance, European position with own position of the own government. So actually refusal to discuss in Germany about the voting system in European Union. It's not only the political level, but also, on the level of academia. And then the problem is, there's a clash that for East Europeans, the war ended 1989. So, because we are affected by the war, our generation. So, for us, for Poles, it's very difficult, to realize, in a way, in this new German patriotism is based on that the Nazi past it's not forgotten, but it is, in a way, it's closed, yeah? And it is very difficult to close the past, the Second World War in Poland, because we just started the discussion. And when we open up the Museum of the Warsaw Rising, it's annoying, because on one hand you have to accept. I was in the conference then, and with the German youth, and they have to accept this. But on the other hand, it's a little irritating, because that means the Poles are back in the history, in this history, yeah, and why to build this up? So there's a kind of, we are in different epoch. Then the third, of course, they are in German. There are different Germans. They are not only, there are different Poles. Of course, there are many. They are conservative German. They are nationalist German. They are still member of parliament. The Karl Friedrich Fromme, they say, Deutsches Reich still exists in the. He's a member of a parliament. So in the former border, even the border. You just remember, German accepted the Polish border and the Western border, 1990. Yeah, so it's not far, and such. I don't believe that Frau Steinbach and so. So I would say there is also such a kind of reaction. So and now there's the problem, because. Well, I say some of the changes are inevitable, and the problem is how Germany, this new Germany, what this young generation would do with this, with this, new self-confidence, And this is why it is interesting to look at it and to see. I wanted not to say that in this Polish-German, because it's interesting, because Jewish-German relations are not affected by it. Why not? Because the guilt, this is a dogma. You cannot in public to make impression. You relativize this, because you are finished as a politician. But Polish-German case is much more complicated, because, for instance, War 39 was considered actually Weimar War. It was something. Yes. Yeah, it's a still classic war. The total war started as 41. The first book published about the Wehrmacht crimes in Poland.
Understood Weimar. Sorry.
Weimar. Weimar. Yeah.
We can talk about it.
Okay. I just wanted to say that the first book about this, role of Wehrmacht in Poland in the War 39 was published 2 years ago. Even if the German historiography would think, this is nothing, there's everything over the study, but they are really in this respect in this attitude to Central Europe, and especially a little to Czechoslovakia, because Czechoslovakia, Poland and Czechoslovakia are in different positions than the other countries, because we are on the side of allies, not on the side from Adolf Hitler, and in Poland, occupation was, of course, very brutal. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. John, can we have one more short comment, or maybe just in that one? Yeah?
Just short comment and a short question. Comment is about about the discussion we are having today. It seems it's discussion about what German or Poles or others think about their history. It's not about that. It's about what our nations would like to be in the future. And the discussion we are witnessing in Germany, and also we started the same kind of the discussion in Poland recently, is about what we think about ourselves, what we think about our role in Europe, what we think about our future, whether our nations, as the nations, we would like to be small, medium-sized, or big European nations. So this is the comment. The question is, to all panelists, what would you think, and not to be answered today,
Good point.
What would you point as the reason for the similar result in terms of illustration, let's say, procedures result in our countries, despite the very different point of the beginning. Because in 1990, I dare to say that in Central European states in transformation, we had just two personalities really independent from the communist past. Prime Minister Antall in Hungary and Havel, the president in Czechoslovakia. Even not Wałęsa with his uncertain past and reliance in the compromise with communists. And on the other hand, we had Romania, we had other gradual states of affairs, and the result is similar. It means that probably the way to protect secret collaborators is so good in every of those cases that it is possible to defend them even today in every country, and the result is similar. So think about the reasons.
Well, thank you very much, and I think this is a good clue. And I would like to thank for the panelists, for the really stimulating papers, and for all of you for coming today. And then we are going to lunch, and then we will resume at 2:30. Thank you very much.